The entertainment industry, Hollywood, continues to make increasingly violent films and television programs, making millions in profits. It seems the more violent and bloody the production, the larger the return for its creators. Based on Roland Barthes's concept of myths, entertainment executives actually control the media with immense budgets that are spent putting forth a message which glamorizes violence as a part of our everyday lives. This glamorization of violence creates, as Jean Baudrillard coined, a hyper-reality, which can be very destructive, especially to children. Hollywood executives argue that these movies and television shows carry R, M, or PG-13 ratings, and that they are not appropriate or to be viewed by children. But we would be naive to think that children are not absorbing these messages due to the proliferation of cable television and online media delivery options. All too often, this violence spills into real life, as an unstable few become so desensitized or simply want to emulate this violence that they take action against innocent people. When violence does occur, the shocked actors and movie creators, in order to offset any backlash to these overt displays of violence, take an anti-violence stance through public service announcements. While their celebrity status carries some weight, the impact of the movie violence greatly outweighs their personal pleas to reduce violence in our society. This results in a double standard that can only be referred to as Hollywood hypocrisy. The semiotician Roland Barthes discussed this idea of myths in his book Mythologies, first published in 1957. In his book, Barthes described how we are all surrounded by media messages, and if those messages are reinforced in our mind frequently enough, they become ingrained in us and thus become myths. Barthes believed that the toys that French children played with helped shape the views of the world around them. He wrote, "The fact that French toys literally prefigure the world of adult functions obviously cannot but prepare the child to accept them all, by constituting for him, even before he can think about it, the alibi of a nature which has at all times created soldiers, postmen, and Vespas." To draw a parallel to the entertainment industry, it could be said that the toys or entertainment that children engage in develop their view of the world as a whole. To take that one step further, the images a child sees, violence on movie or television screens, for example, shape the child's impressions and interpretation of reality. Barthes believed that myths are products of the media, having the ability to show the message time and time again until it becomes ingrained in the viewer's mind. This is a scary proposition, since media can be purchased. As a result, whoever has the most money to spend can control the message. In doing so, they influence the viewers simply by repeatedly reinforcing the message. When looking at the influence of violence in movies, we must consider the money used to create and market these films in order to describe their full impact on the target audience. Another variable in myth-making is star power. The celebrities that are featured in movies and television programs are cultural icons and carry credibility, especially with younger audiences. This star power is every bit as important to the myth as the dollars allocated to marketing. Due to a number of mass shootings, such as the Aurora, Colorado movie theater incident and the Newtown, Connecticut school shooting, Hollywood celebrities have come out against gun violence. These stars have produced public service announcements, websites, and sometimes humorous web-based videos to help curb violence in our society. After the Newtown, Connecticut tragedy, several stars created the Demand a Plan PSA and website. These stars encourage their viewers to call on their elected officials to demand action to end gun violence. While this is admirable, these celebrities should also be concerned with curbing violence in the movies they help create. One specific example of a Hollywood star taking action against gun violence comes from Jim Carrey. Carrey created a video that mocks the late Charlton Heston and the commentary he made while he was president of the National Rifle Association.
They couldn't pry that gun from his cold dead hand. What did he say?
While Carrey's video is a poignant commentary on violence and the Second Amendment, it must be taken in context. The last cinematic piece Carrey worked on prior to the release of the Cold Dead Hand video was Kick-Ass 2, a film that CNN Entertainment called one of Hollywood's most violent films. While these anti-violence ventures may seem extremely hypocritical by denouncing the violence that they have helped perpetuate, we must look at this through Roland Barthes's lens of myth. These anti-violence campaigns do carry some weight by their sheer star power, which cannot be underestimated. Since these anti-gun violence PSAs run on video sharing websites and in movie theaters, it is safe to say that the believability factor is high with these actors. This brings in mind Marshall McLuhan's statement that the media is the message, or possibly the messenger is the message in these instances. The biggest problem with these initiatives is while they have A-list celebrities promoting them, they do not have the vast amount of money behind them to disseminate the message like the violence-riddled movies and television programs. In order to get the full perspective of the influence that violent mass media have on our culture in terms of the myths they create, we have to look at the amount of money used to produce and market such media. The average production budget for one of these movies was just under $177 million. Of that budget, roughly 1/3 was allocated to marketing the film. Therefore, approximately $50 million was dedicated to promoting only one of these films. To put that into perspective, $50 million is half of what a brand like Nike or Bridgestone spends annually on marketing all of their products. However, this $50 million was dedicated to the promotion of a single film. Since a film's success or failure is usually determined by its opening weekend numbers, the vast majority of a film's marketing budget is spent in the month or two leading up to the movie's debut. This doesn't even take into account the other roughly $100 million allocated to creating the on-screen violence. In comparison, the budgets utilized to create and promote the PSAs, websites, and web videos against violence are minuscule. Unfortunately, the production and marketing budgets are not available for the anti-violence initiatives. However, we all know that the cost of airing a PSA on YouTube is nothing. If the PSA ran on national television or in a movie theater, it would be given a PSA rate, which means that it is aired free of charge. To create the demandplan.org website would probably cost less than $20,000. Just to be fair, let's assume the overall budget for the initiative is $2 million. That figure is dwarfed by the $50 million spent per action movie, of which there are at least 2 a year. Even with all the star power and positive public awareness that the PSAs may produce, it is still incredibly uneven. Another example of Hollywood hypocrisy is clearly portrayed by producer Harvey Weinstein. He has garnered a lot of attention lately for his decision to stop making violent movies. Weinstein has produced movies such as Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill, Rambo, and Django Unchained.
I like the way you die, boy.
4 of his films made CNN's list of Hollywood's most violent movies and have made him an incredibly wealthy individual. Herein lies a moral dilemma. Should we, as a viewing audience, applaud Mr. Weinstein for his change of heart? Or is it simply too little, too late? Only time will tell, and hopefully it will be a positive story. According to the American Psychological Association, the level of violence portrayed in mass media has escalated in recent years, and a great majority of studies have found a relationship between media violence and aggressive behavior, particularly among children and adolescents. From these studies, 3 pertinent themes have emerged: increased violence in society, a basic desensitization to violence, and an elevated fear of becoming a victim of violence. For over 50 years, laboratory and field experiments have consistently found that kids who are exposed to violence in films and television display more aggressive behavior, thoughts, and emotions than those who do not consume such media. In an article from the Committee on Public Education published in Pediatrics, an estimated 10 to 20% of real-life violence may be attributed to media violence. This same article cites a 3-year study on television violence, which found nearly 2/3 of all programs contain violence. Children's shows contain the most violence. Portrayals of violence are usually glamorized, and the perpetrators often go unpunished. In terms of desensitization, people who consume media violence over time have a decreased physiological reaction compared to their initial viewing of media violence. Research has shown that even relatively brief exposure to such violent media lowers the impact of someone's reaction when witnessing real-world violence firsthand. Prolonged exposure can also decrease a person's willingness to take action on behalf of a victim of violence. Such callous attitudes towards violence and the reluctance to help victims are serious concerns. Fear of becoming a victim is another effect of violent media, especially with children and adolescents. Fear has been cited as a strong motivator for some young people to carry weapons to try to protect themselves. With the increasing availability of movies and cable television, children have more access to violent media that is not appropriate for their ages and development levels. This type of media consumption causes both fear and aggression. Evidence has shown that media-induced fear sometimes has long-lasting and severe effects on children, with one study directly linking heavy television viewing with anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress. In today's society, we are bombarded with violent messages through television and movies. Marshall McLuhan talked about media's invisible and irresistible forces that can push their messages from the unconscious to the conscious. If children are not taught about the hidden factors, they can have an adverse effect or absolute power over them. According to Roland Barthes, the absolute power that is wielded by the media can be purchased. In the case of violent action movies, that price is roughly $50 million per film. While there are initiatives to curb violence, the amount of money or star power employed to curb cannot compete with the vast amounts used to promote it. This Hollywood premise of do as I say, not as I do, has alarming effects on our society, and especially on our youth, who are caught in the proverbial crosshairs. While the entertainment industry is responsible for this violence, they are not entirely to blame. Parents must be involved and work to educate their children that the violence they see in movies and on television is not real. As McLuhan stated, invisible forces in the media must be exposed in order to remove their power. If parents are not appropriately engaged, then children can develop a skewed sense of reality and see this violence as normal or commonplace. The philosopher Jean Baudrillard spoke of this skewed reality or hyperreality while developing his theory of the simulacrum. Working from McLuhan's thought that the media is the message, Baudrillard went a step further to declare that the medium is more powerful than the message, and thus creates a hyperreality that bears no resemblance to the real. While violent movies may increase the heart rate of viewers and have them believe they are involved in a real-life scenario, there are never any funerals, or grieving widows, or orphans, only high-intensity drama. While Hollywood hypocrisy is prevalent in today's world, and will continue to be as long as it is profitable, we can work together with parents and educators to make sure it is not readily accepted as the norm and actively reject it by refusing to consume such violence and protect our children from it.